Gordon Gekko said greed is good, right? And basically, our entire government is based on that. Our government has been sold to the highest bidder. And what's amazing to me is it's very rare because corruption is so baked into the cake. Corruption is so baked into the cake of our politics. It's really not thought of as abnormal when there's something so corrupt, or statements are made that in most like ethical areas, people would want to vomit from how disgusting it is. So before I get to the statement, I want to show you an illustration. An illustration. There is our friend Joe Biden. There is our friend, the uber progressive Senator Dianne Feinstein from California. Why are they just running up stairs with a giant pit of gold at the top? Why is this? Well, we get emails every night, Jen and I, because we're signed up, where Joe Biden, and to be honest with you, to Joe Biden's credit, he allows press into his corrupt fundraisers. So we wouldn't know this information that I'm about to share with you if there wasn't press allowed in the fundraiser. We get these emails, and it's of a report from the fundraiser, what was said, who was there, all that. So last night, I get an email, and I just could not believe what Dianne Feinstein said to wrap up this fundraiser. I mean, I could believe it, but it just shows you everything that's wrong, and frankly, why Elizabeth Warren isn't going to do it, why Kamala Harris don't do it, and no one's going to do it other than Bernie. Let me read a little bit from this fundraiser for you. Former Vice President Joe Biden spoke to about 100 donors at the San Francisco home of Senator Dianne Feinstein and her husband, financier Richard Bloom. If you look into Dianne Feinstein, financier Richard Bloom, just so happens financier Richard Bloom has very, very, very much profited off of his wife, Dianne Feinstein. But I digress. Guests spotted in the crowd including San Francisco Giants president and CEO Larry Bauer and Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, who has endorsed California Senator Kamala Harris, but not Biden. Guests noshed on salami and prosciutto and various cheeses and nuts beforehand. The minimum donation to get in was $1,000 per person. Well, I mean, $1,000 is pretty damn cheap for a little salami and cheese, huh? $1,000 a person. Biden spoke for nearly 30 minutes, took a couple questions, yada, yada, yada. He spoke about President Trump, obviously, how our children are listening, and Trump is a bad, bad man, and our children are listening. And he talked about his international experience, Biden said, while he was in office. Biden spoke of Trump winning in apocalyptic terms. Apocalyptic terms, I tell you. We can handle, God willing, 4 years of Donald Trump. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult to reconstruct domestic policy so it reflects who we are, Biden said. And who is that? We'll find out later. But 8 years of Donald Trump, I don't think this is hyperbole. 8 years of Donald Trump will fundamentally change the nature of who we are. Well, it just so happens Joe Biden and Dianne Feinstein, they told you who they actually are. And I'm no fan of Trump. We do need to defeat Trump. Let's take a look at what was said to end the fundraiser. I think we should go upstairs. There's a lot of major donors. Take a picture with them. Biden then went upstairs. Feinstein told the gathering, please, 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 don't take anything for granted. Help as much you can. No, this isn't The Onion. This is what was said. You want it one more time? Here we go. I think we should go upstairs. There's a lot of major donors. Take a picture with them, Joe. Biden then went upstairs. Feinstein told The Gathering, please, please, please don't take anything for granted. Help as much as you can. In illustrated form, Joe, go upstairs and kiss the ring, I tell you. The donors are waiting for you, Joe. The donors are waiting. Go upstairs, Joe. The money's upstairs, Joe. I mean, I guess this is not surprising that something like this would be said, but this is what the Democratic Party is offering. This is what the DNC is offering. They are offering Trump is the Antichrist. Trump is antithetical to our values. Trump is terrible for our children and, our very who we are and the what does Joe Biden say? The soul of America and all this jazz. Put us back in so we could just be corrupt behind closed doors. This is the Democratic Party sales pitch. Sure, Elizabeth Warren's giving a different sales pitch, not as corrupt, sounds progressive, but ultimately, what our politics is, what the Democratic Party is offering, is a sprint up the stairs to kiss the ring, take the pictures with Mr. and Mrs. Wall Street banker, fossil fuel executive, real estate executive, pharmaceutical executive, Silicon Valley executive, and every last one of those plutocratic, revolving door, usual suspect Neanderthals. So why does this matter? Why does this matter that Dianne Feinstein ended the fundraiser saying, all right, Joe, time to stop playing around. Let's walk up the stairs. Our puppet masters, our sugar daddies and sugar mommies are waiting upstairs to take a picture with you and write the check. Why does that matter? Because this kind of politics is how you're going to lose again to President Trump. I don't care what the polls said. The polls were wrong in 2016. There is a Trump voter, a hidden Trump voter that does not show up on polls because they don't share with pollsters that they want to vote for Donald Trump. Just like I believe right now Bernie Sanders is being, his numbers are definitely showing up smaller than I think they are because the Sanders campaign is working hard to expand the electorate to get people who traditionally do not vote out to vote. And those people will not show up on polls because pollsters don't call those people because they don't vote. But what's amazing, not only is Joe Biden corrupt, not only is Dianne Feinstein corrupt, you put a gun to my head, obviously Trump's corrupt too, but is this going to make, is Joe Biden's brand of politics going to make the uninspired, tends to not vote, or African American or Latino come out in Ohio or Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania or Arizona is in play? I know Trump is the Antichrist, but they need to be inspired to come out and vote for something. Is this the way to inspire people? It's a disaster. It's a disaster. Joe Biden is a disaster. And if you need any more proof, if that's not enough proof, Dianne Feinstein and Joe Biden basically sprinting upstairs to, kiss the ring of the donors. Joe Biden's numbers just came out. Not so good. Not so good. April to June was the second quarter of the year. This was Joe Biden's first quarter because he announced late. He raised $21.5 million in that quarter, an average donation of $49 a donor. Well, from July to September, he's down $6 million. Down $6 million. Average donation down to $44, so that's a little bit better for him. But Joe Biden, the former vice president of the United States, leading in the polls. This, and you know what? I almost feel bad saying pathetic, because like in the old days, raising $15 million would be a big deal. $15 million, not a small amount. But when compared to Bernie Sanders, who's just raised more money than any other politician in this campaign, $25 million, over $25 million he raised in this same time period. $10 million more than Joe Biden. Part of, and it looks, oh, all right, $10 million, but it's actually way more than that if you think about it, because Bernie Sanders' average donation is $18 a donor, which means he has way more donors than Joe Biden, which means he has way more grassroots support than Joe Biden. Also a problem for Joe Biden, which I said after this $21.5 million second quarter, I said something, the problem for people like Biden as well as Harris, a lot of their big money, that $21.5 million, came from plutocrats who gave max donations of $2,800. That's the max you could give. Problem with that, they can't give again. Whereas Bernie's getting most of his donations from Walmart workers, Amazon workers, teachers, nurses, working people that could donate again and again and again and again. Biden, there's only so much there's only almost so many rich people, caviar and champagne to go around. A lot of his donors are maxing out. This is bad news for Biden because it shows he's fading. The last vice president of the United States, who was vice president to a wildly popular president, Barack Obama, should not be outraised by a small town mayor from South Bend, Indiana. Theoretically, he shouldn't be outraised by Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, but he is. And to her credit, Elizabeth Warren's numbers came out today. She raised $24 million, so about $1 million less than Bernie Sanders, but still $24 million, a hell of a lot of money. So, you know, I have my issues with Warren. We report on it here, but we got to be honest. She raised a lot of money too. What's really standing out to me about this is I think you're going to start to see Biden's drop with the fundraising. I think you're going to start to see this reflected in the actual polls. Right now, Warren in a lot of national polls has moved ahead of Biden by 3 or 4 points. And in many of the early state polls, as I described yesterday for you, it's basically a 3-way tie right now. The latest poll in California, it's between Bernie and Biden in Ohio. Warren is several points behind both of them in Ohio. It's about Biden and Bernie are almost basically tied in Nevada. So Iowa, Bernie's a little further behind right now, even though a lot of those polls are nonsense. So what's really standing out to me, Bernie Sanders needs to go for the jugular against Joe Biden in this next debate. In fairness, you know, we'll see how he feels as the campaign and Jane, his wife, updated yesterday. He'll be leaving the hospital this weekend, barring any changes, and then he's going to go back home to Vermont for a few days. So he should be well rested for this debate. Obviously, the last debate, you know, his voice was almost gone, wasn't peak Bernie. He'll be rested for this one. I think Jimmy Dore spoke about it in an interview I think I saw him do on the Hill. Other people have spoken about it. Bernie Sanders needs to realize you have no friends right now in politics. Elizabeth Warren's not your friend. Joe Biden is not your friend. You can make up later in life. They are your competitors and they are your enemies. And they are enemies to what you're trying to achieve, particularly Joe Biden. So and there's going to be 12 people on stage, so he's going to have to force his way into that, because all the candidates would be lucky if they get more than 30 seconds to speak. So Bernie Sanders really, really needs to fight like his life depends on it. Fight like his life depends on it, politically speaking, because it does. Because I think if Bernie Sanders comes with that working class fight, if Bernie Sanders points out these very fundraisers Joe Biden's doing, where Feinstein and him are jogging up to the money pit, if Bernie Sanders starts aggressively saying, well, how are you gonna lift the middle class when you've helped crush the middle class with NAFTA and TPP, and explain in a simple way that people can understand why those trade deals have created the economic malaise we're in, why those trade deals have single-handedly, those trade deals are in large part why you have that. And a jobs report that just came out today showing wages again stagnant and slipping. Booming economy. Yeah, for who? It ain't booming for you and I, that's for sure. So, I think Bernie Sanders, right now, his best chance to get back in it to where it's basically a three-way race. Because right now, in a lot of the polls, Bernie is slightly behind. I don't take every single poll as gospel because a lot of them undersample younger voters. A lot of them have a small sample size. And again, I think there's a hidden Bernie vote that's not showing up in these polls because they are targeting people who don't vote, which won't show up in the polls. But if Bernie, the most ripe fruit for him to pick at and gain is Biden, because a lot of Biden supporters, amazingly to me, nice people probably, but probably aren't getting informed from this terrible media, which I'm about to show you about that, make less than $50,000 but still support Joe Biden, and only have high school degrees and still support Joe Biden. They don't know that they're voting against their own interests. That's what Bernie Sanders needs to show. To me, would it be good for him to separate himself a little bit from Elizabeth Warren? Yes, absolutely. But I think what he really needs to do, is neutralize Biden and make it more of a direct contest between him and Warren. Because I think a direct contest between him and Warren, I think Bernie Sanders wins that contest. But Biden is a weak front runner. He's basically tied now as a front runner. There's no there. You want to recapture the soul of America? Well, this is Joe Biden's soul. Only Bernie Sanders can expose it. He can't depend on the New York Times, who is part of this debate. He certainly can't depend on CNN, who is moderating this debate. Only him can point these things out. And he's going to have more rest than he's probably had in 4 years. Because as I talked about this week, Bernie Sanders has been campaigning since 2015. He never stopped after he lost that primary. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.